Good evening, everyone. And this is one of the most misunderstood and controversial aircraft on the planet, the Convair B-58 Hustler. And this is one of the latest Malagasy What If incarnations of the Hustler. The Hustler has been in service with the What If Air Force since 1969, when they were brought at a bargain basement price from the Americans. Now, like I said, the Hustler was one of the most controversial and misunderstood aircraft. I'm not going to get into why it was retired. It's still a subject of hot debate. But let's just say, basing in America is political. It's connected to voters, connects to senators, the same as arms companies and contracts bring jobs to certain areas, which also brings power to senators and governors. Now, that's all I'll say on that subject. The Hustler itself was a remarkable aircraft, absolutely amazingly well designed for its time. But it had four General Electric J79 fuel guzzlers underneath its wings in pods. Those engines were very powerful for the time and the best technology available, but they've been surpassed by a long way, both in terms of efficiency and power. The Hustler also had a bit of a range issue, because if it wasn't carrying its underbelly tank, the big pod with the small pod with the nuclear weapon inside, it didn't have long legs. Now, that didn't really affect most Hustlers in operation, because they would take off and refuel, and they would fly the missions using aerial refueling. But what it did affect was the Hustler's ability to carry a conventional weapon load. Now, the Malagasy state retired the Hustlers, and they've kind of sat there, and Lucky from the Spirit Squadron thought that she was going to have a nice retirement, but her and 17 other Hustlers have been brought back into service and heavily modified. This is the biggest What If conversion I have done to date, and I'm really pleased with it. Is it perfect? No. Could I do things a little better? Yes, probably. So what I've done is I've took the spare intakes from the JSF kit, because the X32 kits come with a JSF spare. So I've used two of the JSF kits to make these stealth-like inlets here, and I've made this from plastic hard. This is the pod for the F135 JSF engine. What if the JSF engine with 42,000 pounds of afterburning thrust, 26,000 pounds of dry thrust, so that is giving this aircraft 80,000 pounds of thrust, which is 20,000 more than the original Hustler had, and the original Hustler was a hot ship capable of Mach 2. Now, like I said, the big issue was you had to have this underbelly pod. That really limited ammunition carriage, weapon carriage, to a nuclear weapon inside the pod and 4 nuclear weapons here. Now, if you're carrying conventional loadout, that limits you to 4 pylon stations with a maximum of 8,000 pounds, which isn't really significant, and that's why I withdrew the Hustlers. The children are being noisy. But when you take away that pod and you take away the engine pods, one, you get a much more efficient aircraft with way more power than the Hustler ever had. It's got stealth triangles for low observability and some stealthy triangle intakes. It will, of course, be variable, and that's the start of the ramp. And then there is a diffuser on the inside to give the supersonic performance. It's still a Mach 2 aircraft. But taking away that underbelly fuselage tank pod gives you the ability to carry, in this case, 9 2,000 pound penetrator bombs, BLU 109s, GBU 31s, and that is an 18,000 pound weapon load. We've got a F-35 style triangular targeting system, electro-optical system here. We've got countermeasures, as always, chaff flare dispensers, everything fitted on there. Now those F-35 kits also gave me the wings, which have become the B-58MX's tail. So these are actually wings from the F-35 that I've cut off the Italeri fuselage. Underneath here they have the little bit there for a towed decoy. The rear gun's gone, just a countermeasure and rear radar system there. And most importantly, because obviously I've taken away the underbelly fuel tank, is the aircraft needs to have range. And that's where modern developments like these conformal fuel tanks, which are made out of plastic card, come to the fore. So the B-58MX has two conformal large fuel tanks. Now this would be subdivided into smaller compartments because when you're going supersonic, you want to be able to move the fuel back to retain your center of gravity. But that's what they are on their two conformal fuel tanks. Loads of electronic equipment and gubbins at the top for countermeasures, and the third crew member is gone. This aircraft only needs two crew members. The pilot with his gold tinted stealth canopy, and the weapons systems operator in the second crew area there. We've got some countermeasures from Hasegawa F-16I Sufa. We've got a in-flight refueling probe system marked out, because that's what the Malagasy is using the A400Ms for when they replace the KC-135s. Still retains compatibility with American refueling systems, and it's painted in dark gunship grey with aluminium added to give that nice shiny stealth low observable look. And then I've just picked out certain areas where I want the decals to go Malagasy style, the leading edge in a light ghost grey, and the same with the cockpit, because this would be like your radar absorbing material. So it's not a stealth aircraft per se, but if you look at the original Hustler without this tail, with the V-tail, with the modifications, with the conformal fuel tanks, with the low observable engine pods there, this will have a lower radar cross section in What If World than the original Hustler, which was already quite a good aircraft. Now I did make the A5M Vigilante, but the Hustler returning to service has just way exceeded the capability of the Vigilante. So what will I be using this for? Well, this will be the third of my triad of strategic bombers. This is fulfilling the role of the B-1B in Malagasy service. And the £18,000 weapon load, even though it's just over half of what the B-1B can carry, is still a good weapon load for this aircraft in a low-level penetration role or a standoff role. Imagine getting some close air support from 18 JDAMs. That's going to give your enemy a bad day. And the A5M Vigilantes will go into the anti-shipping specialist role, leaving the Vulcans, the B-49s and the Hustlers to be doing the strategic bomber role. Now, I did have a Revell 1 in 72nd ATB planned to replace the Vulcans, but that order has gone astray and it's now ended up in a credit card payment dispute as to why it hasn't been delivered and why the company isn't responding and why their email server isn't responding. A bit odd. But that raises the question as to whether the last Vulcan should be done in the style of an advanced weapon system to go with the B-49 and this Super or Hypa Hustler. Let me know what you think. I hope you've enjoyed this build. This is one of the more creative what ifs I've done. What I'm trying to do with my modelling is progress it from just a case of redecaling and repainting something and modernising something to actually really going to town on the aircraft. I'm trying to improve my airbrush skills. The bits that I have issues is where I have to touch up after the airbrush. That's where it's not so good. This one, the plastic card for the CFTs was a real stretch for me. They're not perfect, but I really like them. I like the effect it gives, and it's inspiring me in confidence to do more stuff, because doing a more substantial modification like this, again, it's not perfect, but it's a growth project. It's growth for me as a modeler. I'm enjoying building this. I love the way this looks. I absolutely love the Hustler anyway. I've got quite a few unbuilt Hustlers in the loft, and this is where that kit's come from. It was going to be a Gulf War Hustler. I can still do a Gulf War Hustler, but this just seemed to flow, and I'm really pleased with it. I hope you are. Take care. Goodbye.